Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam, and I just want to touch base with you before I start the show. Make sure that you go check out my best-selling book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It is the security Bible. It is what you need if you want to secure your home, if you want to secure schools, your businesses, whatever. What it does is it shows you how to look at yourself, your company, every sector of your life from the attacker's point of view. Once you truly understand how attackers look at you and plan the attacks, what vulnerabilities they go after, it's as simple as turning around and defending or setting up defenses or awareness strategies to go around or defeat or eliminate that threat. You cannot do that unless you understand how the attacker sees you, because you'll never be able to fully identify the avenue of approach that they'll take and the vulnerabilities that they'll exploit. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. There's no other book out there like it. If you do want workbooks so that you can go all the way with this, there's a threat assessment workbook and a defense assessment workbook that goes right along with Sheep No More. And for the children, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. Go check it out. It's a book of pictures that have lessons of security awareness and communication built in for kids ages 1 to 8. And then you, the parent or teacher, go to teamlittlebigs.com and you download the lesson plans. And then you give the book to the child and you lead them through these visual lessons so that they learn visually, which is really the primary way that these children learn when they're that young. The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, and Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Go check it all out. Go get them anywhere books are sold, online or in bookstores, because, folks, if you want to defend your homeland, you're the one who's going to have to secure your life. And this is how you do it. Let's start the show.
The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome back to the show. I know it's been a few days since I've had a podcast, but a lot going on here early in the summer, although it's not like summer here in New York right now. But it's been a pretty incredible couple of weeks, a lot going on. I think I'm the busiest non-paid person on Newsmax, so that kind of helps out with book sales, but so it keeps me busy in the speaking in the sector of going around the country. But, you know, all these different episodes that I've had discussing things about my frustration with the Republican Party, about the Communist Democrat Party, about just all these things that are going on right now and how nothing's being fixed. I want to start reaching out to different people that are running for office. I've been involved here on Long Island trying to help some candidates, get positions and start running for office, but I've really been concentrating mostly on school boards, on local elections, helping people with local legislative positions. That's some of the most important things out there right now. But I think we've discovered over the past year that governors really are the central point of power in the United States. A governor can participate if the Democrat Party, for instance, owns the federal government, which they do right now. A corrupt megalomaniac like Cuomo can do their bidding at the local level and destroy an entire state, which he's doing in New York. But on the other hand, if you have somebody who stands against what the federal government is doing, the corruption of it, say DeSantis in Florida, then you're going to have a state that thrives throughout this not really pandemic. It's really a national crisis created by the Democrat Party. So I want to start bringing in people who are in the governor's position, who are running for governor. And in Texas, Don Huffines is running for governor. And what is interesting about him is, first of all, his background, but mostly, and this is the thing because I've been so critical of the Republican Party, is that he's somebody who is saying the right things, looking in the right direction for where Texas needs to go. There's no doubt that he's conservative when you look at his background and you look at what he has stood for in his time in government. So, Don, I want to bring you on and let's discuss some of this stuff. And people, Don, when they look at Texas, they really do think, oh well, Texas is conservative. Nothing's going to happen to Texas. A lot of Texans believe that. They say, we have our guns in Texas and nobody's going to change things. But that's not really the case with Texas. It's probably changing. I've been saying this for several years, faster than most states towards the left, as crazy as that sounds. So welcome, and let's talk about that.
Hey, good morning, Jonathan. Yes, we've got an exciting election coming up in Texas.
So, first of all, the Texas that you grew up in, and you're a native Texan, versus Texas now, would you have ever thought growing up, and at what age were you when you got into politics, or when you started to realize the political world? But that world, when you grew up in Texas versus the world that Texas is now, would you have ever thought that the liberals, and not just liberals, let's be honest, they're socialists, they're communists in a lot of ways. Would you have ever thought that they would be able to take over as much of Texas as they have?
Well, I certainly wouldn't. It certainly never occurred to me that this would be happening, what's happening. I'm a fifth generation Texan. I was born in Dallas and grew up in the Metroplex, and I got active in politics. I've actually been active all my life, but I never run for office. I was always supporting the most conservative candidates I could. In 2014, I ran and beat the biggest rhino in Austin for our state Senate and for Dallas County. So I represented the state Senate down there for Dallas. There's only 31 Texas senators. There were only 20 Republicans. And I got beat in 18 when the Democrats took over Dallas County. They essentially took over every elected position in the county, but 3 out of like 70 positions. And Texas has changed, and it's going to continue to go blue, and that's why this election is so important.
Now, I was looking at your website for your campaign, and it's donhuffines.com, Huffines. And, when I'm looking at the Texas issues, border security, election integrity, property tax, and Texas values, those are the things that you have listed. Every single one of those issues are a result of the Democrat Party and, which most people don't realize, the Republican Party bending over backwards and allowing them to flow into their state.
Well, that's absolutely the case. I mean, I'm an actual Republican, and that's part of our campaign. And this campaign's about leadership, no excuses. I'm running against Abbott, our sitting governor. And let me just tell you, he is the definition of a career politician. 30 years on the state payroll. He is a true rhino, Republican in name only. He's a political windsock, and there's no leadership on his position. When I was in the legislature, all the members of the legislature on there were just leaderless, and they still are. For 30 years, Republicans have controlled everything in Austin. Excuse me, for 20 years. And we've controlled the House, the Senate, and the governor's mansion. And every year, grassroots and our Republicans, we beg to get some of our priorities done, and we can't get them done. Occasionally, they give us a party favor here and there. But this is a desperate time. We're running out of time, and this is probably the most important election in the United States of America in 22. And I'll go over that in a second.
Well, no, I agree with you there. So I don't really, to be honest with you, I haven't concentrated too much on Abbott because, in the news, they make him, and this is where the news is the news is bad, period. But for conservatives, this is where it's bad. The news does not give you a proper analysis or a proper bio of who these governors are, right? And so that's one of the reasons why I'm starting to interview more governors candidates, because I want to get, like your take on the reality of what's happening there. Yeah, Abbott's your competitor. You're going to point out the things that Abbott does right or wrong. But I will tell you, from an outsider's perspective, I'm sitting here looking at Texas, and it's falling to the left. I mean, it is so liberal. The last time they had the NRA there, the mayor of Dallas didn't want it. And this was the rumor. I don't know if this was the fact. Maybe you could confirm this, but the mayor of Dallas tried to block the NRA from being there, and when they couldn't do that, they all of a sudden all this construction sprung up all over the place that week and caused massive congestion throughout the city. And so it's gotten so bad that and I've been in Houston, I've been in Dallas, I've been in Austin. I toured with a country music singer for a while. I was his director of security, and I also did some crisis management for a company out there. And I was astounded. And the thing was, the people that I met in the rural areas weren't actually realizing what was occurring. You go to the cities, people see it. And I think at the point when I was there, this is 2019, they felt it. They knew it was turning liberal. It had already gotten that way, but they hadn't felt the impact that they're feeling now, which is all the woke and the political correctness that's putting the weight on people where they can't even be themselves in the state of Texas. That's just crazy.
It is crazy. It's sad, but all the major metropolitan areas in Texas are blue, all of them, and it represents 15 million to 20 million people.
Wow.
Look, Washington is broken. And I say this, look, it really is. And we say we go back and we elect another Republican senator from Ohio or Arizona. We put some more people in Congress that are Republicans. And I say, to what end? To what end? Washington is broken. We had the trifecta with the biggest warrior we've ever had occupying the presidency, President Trump, one of my heroes. And look, we still could hardly get anything done because that swamp is so deep and there's so many rhinos in the Republican Party, which is truly the cancer of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And so the only solution we have to save the United States of America is in the states. And I present to you that Texas is the best hope we have. And you must have a governor that has leadership. Can I just talk about the border crisis for a minute?
Sure.
I mean, I just got back from there a couple of weeks ago, actually 10 days ago. It is much worse than most people know or can even imagine. This is truly an invasion. Last month alone on the Texas border, Border Patrol captured 175,000 illegals crossing our Texas border. 175,000 in 30 days. And if that's not an invasion, I don't know what is. And let me just tell you, this is a premeditated attack on the United States of America, on Texas. This is a planned attack by the liberals, by the socialists, by the communists. They are flooding Texas with literally, by the end of this year, millions of illegals. Border Patrol thinks they capture about a third of the ones that are actually doing the cross.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that this invasion, the numbers that everybody points out is the ones that got caught. And I know for a fact, having, I worked in Central South America as a Navy SEAL, and we knew back then in 2000 that it was bad. We knew that the border was a crisis back then. And then having done stuff with Sheriff Lamb in Arizona and seen firsthand the reality of how many people are coming over, it is unbelievable. Most people do not realize that the population of an entire city is going across the border every week.
That is so true. Absolutely. And let me tell you, these no one crosses that border without paying off the cartels, and they never have. They haven't been able to cross the border for decades without paying the cartels. These cartels are the most violent, evil, crime organizations, really their own government in the world. Let me just tell you a quick story. I was down there meeting with the mayor of Uvalde, close to the border, and he showed me pictures of the river, on our side of the river. And right now you have to get an arm brace. These illegals are crossing with these wrist bracelets, like you go to a concert with and things, and they're different colors, red, green, blue, yellow, whatever. And it represents different segments of each cartel to show that these people have paid. Our side of the river, there are thousands and thousands of these wrist bracelets where they cut them off when they get to this side of the river. And it is just amazing what these cartels are doing. And let me just tell you, the mayor of Uvalde told me that since the first of the year, in their one little sector, it's the Del Rio sector, there's several sectors on the border of Texas, they captured illegals from 64 different countries. That's basically a third of all the countries in the world. They captured illegals crossing. That's just the ones they caught.
Wow.
And these are men crossing. These are not just women and children. The men outnumber them by 30 to 1. And they're pouring across the border. This is a total invasion. And I can tell you, under a Huffines administration, it's going to stop. It's going to stop immediately. I'm going to finish Trump's wall. We're going to build a Texas wall. And I tell you, we're going to do whatever we need to do to close that border. This is Texas's border. This is our border. We fought a war. This border was clearly defined with the blood of Texas patriots. And I can tell you, we're not going to give it back to Mexico. And I'm not ever going to ask permission from the federal government to secure Texas's border. We have 64% of the international border. We have 1,200 miles of that border. We have 25 crossings over that border. I'm closing every single crossing in one day.
How is it that Abbott has never done that? What's his focus?
His focus, he's not a leader. If he wanted to close that border, he could do the same thing I'm going to do, but he doesn't want to close that border. He and all these rhinos and all the establishment know-it-alls when he was in office 20 years ago, they were after open borders. They gave these magnets. They would change the laws in Texas to create opportunities for illegals that aren't supposed to be here, the border jumpers. In Texas, an illegal can go to college here with in-state tuition. They've got programs he set up for illegals to be here. We've got all kinds of magnets drawing them here. We do not have E-Verify. We need to get all that going. Look, if he can. And let me just tell everybody in the United States why this election is so important. It's because we are being invaded. We are being invaded. The Biden administration is going to put in millions of illegals into this country. And I can tell you their plan is simple. They're going to give them amnesty, and they're counting on their vote. It's over. Texas will be blue. 100% guarantee it. We already have millions of illegals in this state, flooding our schools, flooding our hospitals, flooding our jail system. Most of them are all beholden to the cartels. It's a complete invasion. We are desperate. And I present to you that this election not only is the most important election in the United States of America, if you care about the United States of America, I think history could show that this could be the most important election, one of the most important elections in our country's history.
Well, I agree with you there. I agree. You know, one of the things I wish, this is an idea of mine. Of course, I don't know Trump. I could never have gotten this to him, but I had an idea about, and I thought about this for years and years. You know, I was in the FBI here in New York, and the majority of cases that I had drug related would end up back at the border of Mexico or Canada, always. And so you start to realize that, plus having been, you know, like I said, a SEAL working and dealing with the border in Central South America, I knew back then how many were here and how many illegals were in this country. I know that amnesty is a huge thing for most conservatives. They don't want to give amnesty because they're afraid that the liberals have that vote, right? So the millions of these Mexicans and people from all over, it's not just Mexicans, but all over the world that are coming across the border, if they give them citizenship, or amnesty, they're going to vote for the Democrats, and we're just lost at that point. So I came up with this idea because DHS is never, especially when they're under a leftist rule, and just because Trump, this is another thing I want to ask you in a second, but just because Trump was in office didn't mean that those that were running the agencies weren't leftists, because they are. And they were groomed as far back as Clinton when he was in office. And they've risen to power through Bush, because he didn't get rid of them, through Obama. But part of me wishes they could have come up with a contract for America to offer that to illegals that have never done anything wrong. They came over here illegally, and let them work towards citizenship. However, they can never vote because they came over illegally. If they had done that alone, they could have stopped the power of that, because that's what I see and you tell me if you agree or not. I see in this immigration crisis, I see the same thing we have in the drug problem. And I'm not advocating legal drugs, but we have two problems. We have a drug problem and we have a crime problem, and they're both tied together. And we have to start looking at these things from a tactical perspective. With the illegal part, we have an influx of people coming into the nation that we're not able to manage. But at the same time, we have a Democrat Party that is making that possible for their own purpose, so they can use those people to degrade the nation and pack their coffers with votes. So that's how we got to look at this stuff. And if we can't shut the borders, or if we won't shut the borders completely, well, then we're going to have to come up with some kind of idea. So, like you keep saying, Texas is in the middle of this. Texas is the biggest border. What I saw in Arizona was such a mind-boggling large number of people coming across the border that something just has to be done. And nothing, as you're saying, is being done. So how do you, with the people that are in Texas, that's the thing that worries me just as much as the people crossing. The amount of people that are in Texas now that are illegal, and the amount of people, this is the scary part, of people that are okay with that are in Texas, that are voters and have been indoctrinated to think that that's just okay. It's just the way it is. We don't need borders. How do you tackle that part of the problem?
Well, first, let me say that I love Mexico. It's my favorite country to travel to. I actually lived there a year. Mexicans are hardworking, God-fearing people. But this is an invasion of Texas. This is a complete invasion. When I say that, it's really, I just want to go back to the numbers again. In one sector, 16,000 men were captured in one small segment of that border in the last 30 days. How could anyone not think that this is the most serious issue facing Texas and the United States? And when I say that you lose Texas, you lose the USA, I mean, when you lose Texas, you're losing the free world. Yeah. We are the tip of the spear of liberty. We are the tip of the spear. And we need to regain our swagger to get that back. And we're going to do it. When I say I'm going to close the border, those 25 crossings, we're going to close it until illegal immigration stops. And we don't have a choice. The only chance we have of securing our international border is with a governor of Texas that's willing to do it. Because we know the federal government's going to keep it open. They're the ones, they have always kept it open. And so it's going to change. And I just want to tell Jonathan, your listeners that this is a real campaign. We're going to have plenty of resources to compete. We've got millions of dollars in the bank. We're raising tons of money, tons of excitement. And I just want everybody to understand, I don't need this job. I'm a successful businessman. I've been blessed. I've got a great family. I'm only doing this because the job's not getting done. And I'm the only elected office holder in the history of the state of Texas that refused to take any money from the government when I was there for 4 years in the Senate. No pay, no pension, no health care, no per diem, no travel vouchers. I didn't even use their office furniture because I am not doing this for a job, period. I don't want their money. I work for the people and not the government. It's going to be the same way when I'm in the governor's seat. I am not taking any money from the government for any reason. So anyway, I just wanted to say that because it is important to understand this is about the message and not the messenger. And it's a message of liberty. It's a message of leadership. It's a message of freedom. And we're going to get all that done. We're going to change Texas.
So how did I know how, I've done some in-depth studies of the United States and how they were subverted, okay? Because the nation has been subverted. There's a guy named Yuri Bezmenov that was a Russian defector to the United States back in the 80s, and he was a propaganda specialist for the KGB. He talked about he's dead now, but he talked about all these things. You can look him up on YouTube. He laid it out how subversion works. It's been done. How did Texas get subverted? Was it just the sheer mass numbers of Californians moving to Texas, or was it planned? Because what I see around the nation is the cities falling. And when the cities fall to the blue, and those are the most cosmopolitan areas, those are where you have the inner city. The Democrats, it's the easiest place for them to come in and work their magic that they have, and then they take those over. How did Texas fall? How were the politicians and the voters in Texas fooled so easily?
Well, I think it's with the Republican Party. We've let our grassroots down. We've let people down. People are tired of being lied to. I'm tired of being lied to. We're all tired of it. We're tired of broken and empty promises by our elected officers, particularly our governor. And look, the governor is weak, and these guys are all liars. Yeah. They promise us one thing. They promise us election integrity. We don't have any confidence in our election. We know our votes are being stolen. We know people cheat. I don't know if they're being stolen, but I know people cheat in elections. That's for sure. They've cheated in elections since there's ever been an election. The Romans and Greeks probably cheated in elections. Mm-hmm. But we don't have any confidence in our elections. Our property taxes in Texas just keep going up and up. We have really almost the highest property tax rate in the country. And we've lost our leadership roles, and the rhinos have destroyed us. When people look, you talk about voter suppression. When people see no difference in the two parties, they're not voting,
right?
Except the Democrats vote, and that's what's happened in Texas.
So here's what I've seen, traveling around the country, and this is I'm so glad that you answered that question with what you said, because to me, this is a Republican. The Democrats are the enemy, the domestic enemy of this nation. I think they're the biggest national security threat that we have ever faced. I don't think ISIS even holds a cracker to the danger that we have from the communist left. But they may be our enemy, but the vulnerability that they exploit is the Republican Party. I mean, the Democrats offer classes to subvert people. They control the Department of Education. They're the ones responsible for busing all of these illegals to the border. If people don't realize that, I mean, listen, you've been in Mexico, having worked down there. There's not people that are going to come from Guatemala and Honduras in 2 weeks and make it there with food and water and money to spare. Those things are being given to them, and they're being shipped to the border. All these things are being done tactically by the Democrat Party, and then while everybody's all upset because they're fighting and saying bad things and harsh things against Trump, or they own the media, they're doing things like adjusting the voter system a little bit, and a little bit now and a little bit then, and so they finally get to a point where it's completely corrupted to their side, or they're putting people and voters, convincing them to move to these areas like in Texas. And so the Democrats have this incredible machine that they use. They can start a riot, a protest, or a rally or celebration in an hour anywhere in the country. The Republican Party does not have any of that infrastructure because of what you said. All they concentrate on is getting themselves elected, or, and this is the really bad part that people don't see behind the scenes, is a system that thrives on running elections. They make money off of running elections. That's it. That's all they're concerned about. And I've been all over this country. This is a repeating problem, or this is the Republican Party. Let's get people elected. And what I like hearing from you is that you understand that this part of the political system is broken, and that the system that exists in Texas, for instance, is not necessarily the fault of the Democrat Party. It's the fault that the Republican Party doesn't show up.
Oh, that's correct. It really is. And what I'm presenting to the voters of Texas is something they really never had an option and never had a choice. My opponent has never had an opponent. In 30 years of being on the government payroll, he's never had a primary opponent. And we're going to give him something, the voters, something to run on. I am the liberty-loving candidate. This is a revolution of ideas. This is a revolution about liberty, about the fundamental role of government. And I always ask you guys, and I ask people this, what is the fundamental role of government? And you should always ask everyone running for office this question. And I present that it is always to defend our God-given liberty. First and foremost, to defend what our God-given liberty. Our founders of our country knew that the biggest threat to our God-given liberty was the very government they were creating. And that's why they wrote the Constitution. a simple document that we swear allegiance to. We don't swear allegiance to the military, to the king, the president, or anything else. We swear allegiance to that document. And our current governor shredded that document. So did all the other governors in the state and the federal government. Went for the scamdemic. There wasn't any part of it that wasn't really violated. They closed businesses. They destroyed jobs. In Texas, our governor destroyed he put over 3 million people in unemployment in 1 week. That's more jobs than this state has created in over a decade. He didn't care how long you worked at that job. He didn't care how many sacrifices were made. And worse than that, he even closed our churches on the holiest week of the year, Easter. You couldn't bury the dead properly. You couldn't get baptized properly. You couldn't get married properly. There wasn't any part of the Constitution that wasn't shredded in the last 12 months and across this nation and in every state. And it is still being that way. This is a premeditated attack by the Democrats to get more status, more government control over the people. And this has got to end. We've got to awaken. We've got to wake up, Jonathan. And I say this often. It's time for those that believe in liberty to take their liberty swords out of their rusted swords, out of their sticky scabbards, and start swinging and cutting the chains of government. We've got to awaken the sleeping sheep from their slumber to restore our God-given liberties, to restore what's been stolen from us. This is a revolution of new ideas of liberty and prosperity beyond our imagination. It's beyond anything we're used to. When I say Texas is going to be the lighthouse of liberty, I mean it. We're going to shine that lighthouse so bright it's going to blind those socialists and communists from New York to San Francisco down to the deep swamp in Austin, which is just as deep and wide as the one in Washington, D.C. Not only are we going to awaken the United States, we're going to awaken the world. We're going to awaken the world for prosperity and liberty, our economic liberty, I said again, and our personal liberty. It's going to be tremendous.
You know,
I tell you,
that
our greatest days are coming.
So the interesting thing about, this whole era that we're in is that it's actually past time for people to wake up. I was watching, I don't remember what news program it was last night. I think it was Fox, and I flipped over there, and they had Meghan McCain's husband hosting a show on there. And I don't know anything about this guy except for the fact he's married to Meghan McCain, and I'm no fan of hers. And everybody in the media keeps talking about how it's time for people to wake up. It's time for people to wake up. But the reality is that time was like 15, 20 years ago. The reality is now we're in a bad situation. Tactically, this nation is in a terrible situation, and they have to be very careful on who they elect. And that's what scares me, is that everything you're saying is incredible. And what it just really comes down to is waking up these voters and helping them realize that this sword that you speak, a big part of that is the vote. You have to show up and pull your sword and go vote. And we're in a problem right now, because when it comes to election integrity, we can't tell. I mean, we should be going back to paper ballots. I remember in Arkansas when I used to vote, you'd go in there and the ballot was this long piece of paper and had arrows that had blank spaces in the middle. And if you're voting for this person, you just marked in, colored in that arrow. There was no hanging chad. There was nothing. You just colored in the arrow that pointed to the person that you wanted to vote for. It was that simple. You handed in, it was hand counted, and it was protected by law enforcement. That doesn't even exist anymore. I have no idea, once I get this receipt that says what I want it to say, because it says what I voted, I hand it to this person, they put it in the machine. I have no idea what's happening there. And that is the real problem, is that we are so far behind, and the people are starting to wake up. But it's almost like waking up after you've fallen into quicksand and you're already up to your neck. And I think that the other thing that goes along with that, we get you and governor into the governor's office in Texas. How do you handle, as a governor, you've been there in the state Senate, how do you handle these career politicians and the local politicians, the school board members, the people who have a dying allegiance to the left, or get in office, which is just as bad. They get in office for careerism and they have no clue what they're doing. How do you handle that as a governor? Because that's going to be a huge roadblock for you.
Well, I can tell you, it all starts with leadership and courage. Courage is a catalyst for every virtue. And I've seen it over and over. It takes tremendous courage to stand up when everyone's telling you to sit down, when everyone's telling you don't know what you're talking about, and you stand up and you say, no, I do know what I'm talking about. And we're going to make changes here. I mean, we're going to save Texas. It starts with leadership. Everything starts with the governor. It really does.
Yeah.
The governor champions something in Texas, you can get it done. If we want to champion election integrity and root out all the cheaters, and we can do that. We can do that. But if you don't have a governor that's going to champion it, you're not getting to the 1-inch line.
Is it possible to win as governor in Texas and in these other where, you know, the rhinos have a stronghold? Is it possible to win if you are speaking outside of their realm, if you're not a part of that good old boys group?
It absolutely is. It really is. The grassroots in Texas is very active in our Republican Party. They understand the failed leadership when they see it. Texans are very smart, and they really understand this failed leadership that we've got. This is a very winnable election. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have a path to victory. Like I said, I've got a lot of other things in my life I can be doing, and this is a very achievable victory we're going to get, and we're going to win. I'm very confident. You wouldn't believe the excitement we've got. I mean, this is a failed administration. I mean, our governor, like I said, not only did he close the state down, recently we just had this freeze cold weather situation, and we had lots of Texans, dozens and dozens of Texans freezing to death in their houses. We had millions standing in line trying to survive, to get water. Children freezing to death. All of this is on the current governor. It's 100% his responsibility to make sure that didn't happen with his appointments to different agencies. And so Texans are smart, and they know that it's time to save Texas.
And here's the thing that I'm worried about Texans when we say Texans are smart, because I believe the same thing about Arkansans, and not so much in New York. There are some credible New Yorkers that are standing their ground, but this indoctrination that's happening with the young people in the Department of Education, there's going to be a whole new set of voters that have never voted before, that have just come of age, voting for your election, that are communists. These are young kids who have been indoctrinated. I mean, you're going to primary Abbott, but the actual election, that's where the real worry for me is. I think you can go to battle with Abbott and the right man will win. But when it comes to the Democrats, if you're governor, how do you battle that? How do you battle that indoctrination? Because that is what really is going to set Texas up 20 years down the road.
Well, that's a very, very good point. Very good question. And, the communists haven't infiltrated every part of society. It's been a part of their stated goals for decades and decades, probably since the 30s. They've penetrated their seminaries, our education system, our political system. But here's what we got to do. We got to fight. And you have to elect a leader that's willing to fight and take it to them. I'm going to root them out everywhere I can. There's not going to be any quarter. We've hunkered down over here. We're playing defense in this state, and it's going to end. I'm coming after them every chance I get. And that's going to be simple. I mean, we're presenting issues that are really kind of nonpartisan. No Texan wants to write that check for property taxes. It keeps going up and up every year. In my program, I mean, we're going to, in Huffines administration, we're going to eliminate property taxes completely. We're going to phase it out. It might take a decade to do, but I'm going to task the legislature of doing it, and every Texan's going to get a chance to vote on it because it's going to be a constitutional amendment. We're never going to have an income tax, but we can do this. This is a priority of our party, and it's going to create incredible prosperity, incredible wealth will be created. And my team says, hey, Huffines, Don, that we'd be the only state in the nation that doesn't have property tax. And I say, yes, that is fantastic. Finally, we can be a leader in something. Texas is going to get its swagger back. We're going to lead. We're going to get rid of property tax completely, 100%. I mean, that's a nonpartisan issue. Democrats don't want to pay that tax either. And really, the border, there's a lot of Democrats that are very frustrated. That's why Trump did so good down on the border with our Hispanic community, because these are people who have stood in line for year after year to get their families the proper paperwork to be a U.S. citizen, to live in Texas, and they're seeing their communities completely overrun. I mean, these are Democrat sheriffs down there, Democrat mayors that are endorsing the Republican Party. They're endorsing me. And we're making great inroads. There's no place we're not going to take this message to. And actually, election integrity is another big issue I'm campaigning on. I mean, that's really nonpartisan. Democrats cheat too. Democrats cheat Democrats in the primary. Mm-hmm. And we all need confidence in our election because it's the foundation of our constitutional republic. And when we don't have confidence, it's voter suppression, and bad things are really going to happen when that foundation cracks.
Yeah, one of the problems I see in this nation is that the Republican and Democrat Party, I've been saying this for years, the Republican and Democrat parties are private entities. They're not government agencies. Most people don't realize that. They are political parties. So they're organizations, and they own every seat of government in the United States. You know, every sheriff, every judge, every congressman, senator, governor, mayor, all of them. Even school boards are divided along these two parties' lines. And when you look at who runs the election integrity, and who does the the group, the committee who does, that oversees the voting, it's Republican and Democrats. And I have a problem with the way that we police the voting, because it's being done and handled primarily by these two private organizations. It should be done by law enforcement. Law enforcement is the one who should be running the elections. Somehow, some way, with the National Guard, something. But it has to be done to take the overwatch away from the political parties and put it in the hands of authorities. Because right now what we have is an election system across the nation that is absolutely controlled by politics. And we don't need an election system that's controlled by politics. We need an election system that is free, open, and protected.
Well, on election integrity, I mean, that is a significant part of my platform that I'm running on, Jonathan. And what we're going to do on our Huffines administration is staff up law enforcement. It'll be a specific agency of hundreds of law enforcement that'll be trained specifically with all the laws related to the elections and voter fraud, election fraud, and they'll be stationed in every single county of the state of Texas, and they'll have complete authority to oversee everything. And then we're going to set up a court system separate from the counties where these violations are occurring, so we can get proper prosecution. Our prosecutors are elected office holders, and in the major metropolitan areas, of course, they're controlled by Democrats. And the Democrat DAs we have Democrat DAs, we have Democrat judges that are elected, and of course, the juries are money Democrats. This presents a very biased situation that we're going to stop it. We're going to change it. I'm setting up a separate court system and a separate prosecution system to prosecute voter fraud and election fraud. And it's going to be a new day in Texas where everyone is going to have confidence in our elections.
That's thinking outside the box. That's what needs to happen. The do it the same old way is not working. And that's another problem with the Republican Party, is that people, especially when you watch the news, when they analyze this stuff, they're just talking about politics as usual. And I don't get what people don't understand, that we're in, not only are we being invaded, but we're in a war, a subversive war with the Communist Party in this country. And so it has to be outside the box thinking. Absolutely.
It does. But this is imperative to save our constitutional republic. Is everyone must have confidence in the system.
I'm looking at your issues that you go over: border security, election integrity, property taxes. Doesn't it really come down to your last one that you have listed on your website, donhuffines.com, is values, Texas values? I mean, those have really been injured, and it's large part because of the Democrat Party and because the Republican Party has allowed it to happen. The Texas values that have always been there, not only moralistic values, but, Texas is strong. Don't mess with Texas. I never hear don't mess with Texas anymore. I never hear that from anyone. And it seems like as those values have kind of dissolved, as the young people have been indoctrinated, as the Texas has turned blue, so goes the rest of the country. And if the country goes that way, so goes the rest of the world.
Well, that's so true. Amen to that. And I'm telling you, if we lose Texas, it's all over. It really is. You're never going to get the United States back. You're never going to get the free world back.
How do you get those values? How do you get those values back, though, Don? How do you, as a governor, instill? It's almost biblical. If you look back the way Israel was, every so often they would have to come back to those values. How do you, as the governor, get these values back for the long game?
Well, it's leadership again. Leadership, no excuses. And the governor has a great bully pulpit to make it happen. The governor can really educate Texans into the fact that the Democrats are the ones trying to replace God with government. They're the ones trying to destroy our religious liberties. Excuse me. They're the ones that are trying to put more chains on us, make us slaves to the government. Mm-hmm. I think the key here is awakening the sheep, the sleeping sheep. One of my favorite quotes is, John, you're going to love this. It's from Alexander the Great. You probably heard it, being a warrior like you were, that, give me an army of sheep led by a lion versus an army of lions led by sheep.
Mm-hmm. I always say this: if you could take, 20 regular people and train them with great standard operating procedures, teach them how to, shoot, move, and communicate, but give them good standard operating procedures that they all are trained in and follow, they will be able to defeat incredible warriors that have been trained to the nth degree, that have the best equipment, but do not follow standard operating procedures. They will always fail. You have to have standardization. You have to have a thread that goes in there and takes the regular people, shows them what's happening in the state of Texas or in the country, and include them in on the success. Because I think that's what I like hearing about you, but all these other governors are not saying, or people running for governor, is that they say, I will do it, I will fix it. But it really is the people have to be led. It's ultimately the people. Ultimately, their strength is what's going to give you strength to do what's right. Their involvement is what's going to allow your stuff to be carried through. And I think that's what is being failed across the nation, is that in Texas shows this to the nth degree, is that the people are not involved. And they're not being led to that.
That's exactly right. They're not being led. And what we're going to, that's the simple answer to your question. Our values are ingrained in our culture in Texas. We are like I said earlier in the interview, we really are the tip of the spear of liberty for the nation. And we've let it get rusted and dulled. And because we haven't had leadership in this state. Mm-hmm. And we're going to change it. We're going to absolutely save Texas. And tell you, it is desperate times, like you said. We are running out of time. I pray that when I take office in the January of 23, there's a lot left to save. I'm telling you right now, with the invasion on our borders and with what's happening in the nation, I'm not sure what'll be left. But I can tell you this: we're not going to go down without a fight, and we're going to take it to them. We're going to do whatever we can, and it starts with the governorship of Texas. And again, I'm encouraging everyone to really recognize how important this election is, because it is the only real spot on the ballot that everyone in the nation can get behind to save the country.
I really wish that the president, when Trump was, because he was the last real president, but I really wish they could have had a conversation with Texas and Arizona and Nevada and moved military bases to those to the border locations along with prisons. You know, if we intersperse those things along the border, they, I mean, these military bases we have around the nation, they're just they were legislated to the point where they're at. It has served no tactical value whatsoever. Why aren't military bases along the border? You could take up thousands of miles just with military bases that are always patrolled. Prisons should be put on those borders so that, because they're highly controlled, you would not have people coming through those areas. And that's just that's something that I've always thought about. Thinking outside the box is what we need to do. That's what Texas has always done, and that's what I hope. When you get in there, I hope that's what you bring to the table, is thinking outside the box.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. In my business, our motto is seeing beyond the obvious, and we use that every day in my business, and I'm going to use it in the governor's mansion. And I can tell you, you're making an assumption when you say you want to put why doesn't the federal government do that? The federal government doesn't want the border secure.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly. The swamp dwellers in Austin, I mean, Trump wanted the border secure, praise him, but the swamp was too deep and he couldn't get it done. They just don't want that border secure. You've got the Chamber of Commerce's, it wants cheap labor. You got the Republican Party that buys into it. They want an open border and they got it, but I'm going to stop it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I really, really do hope that this works out for you. I think what I'm hearing, well, I know what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is the right things. I don't think most people, when they look at Abbott, they look at what the image that the media puts up there. And, when you look at the overall picture of the way this nation is, I would suggest that every state reevaluate who their leaders are and start with the governors, because like I said at the very beginning of this, the governors, I mean, you look at New York, Cuomo, because of one mandate that he tried to cover up, is responsible for the death of well over 15,000 senior citizens. I mean, well over, by pushing COVID patients into elderly clinics, as stupid as that sounds, and mandating that they go in there. You had the same thing with these Democrat governors from other states who obviously conspired with Cuomo and the Democrat Party overall. But governors are responsible not just for bad policy, but for deadly mandates. And I don't think most people realize that. It's having somebody who's competent, having somebody who is a leader, which is something that just hardly exists anymore. You have many dictators. You have people who just sit in office, but few leaders whatsoever. It's good to hear you pushing that.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Look, I'm telling everybody that our greatest days are coming. Our greatest days are yet to dawn, and you're going to see Texas under Huffines administration exercise state sovereignty like it's never been done before in the United States of America. You're going to see us set an example that's never been seen before. And it's just going to be tremendous. It's going to be off the charts tremendous, of liberty and freedom and prosperity. And I keep coming back to that because it's important that everybody really understands that. This is something that's unique, something that's going to be special, and something that can save not only Texas, but the United States.
Yeah. I guess the important question is, if you get in office, are you going to, when you need days off, are you just going to have your identical twin brother, Philip, go and sit in the chair so nobody thinks that they think you're just working 24 hours a day?
Well, I tell you what, we get mixed up all of our lives, almost every single day. And it does give me the advantage of being two places at the same time.
Just send him off to go speak while you're actually doing something real.
Yeah, it can get me in trouble too.
Listen, I really do, Don. I appreciate you coming on here. This is my first, and hopefully many different people that are running for governor around the country, because it's It's very important. So I hope that I hear the same thing from a lot of these people. I use this as the standard for which they should reach, because what you're saying is right, and you're absolutely identifying the right issues in Texas. I mean, anybody who knows Texas knows that it is like watching somebody's beloved child go down a drug addicted road or a mental illness. That's what's happening in Texas. People are just being led by communist drug dealers, telling them that everything can be free, that you need to hate, conservatism is evil, and these young people are just buying off on it. There's people that are middle-aged and elderly that voted Democrat before, and they don't realize the reality of what's happened to the Democrat Party. And there's people in the Republican Party that show up when they like somebody, or they don't show up because they like somebody in office, so they just don't show up to vote for them. They think everything's okay. These are some terrible circumstances, and it's for the nation. It's manifested in Texas. So God bless you. And anything we can do to help you out, don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. I certainly appreciate it. And everyone can go to donhuffines.com, donhuffines.com. That's, like you said earlier, it's Huffines, and sign up and see what I stand on issues. Sign up for endorsements or make donations. You know the game. It takes a lot. It's a team sport. It takes a lot of people to make this happen. But we are out of time, but we're going to have fun doing it, and we are going to be successful.
Yeah, and this may be a Texas race, but let's be honest. Like you said, what happens to Texas affects the rest of the nation.
No, this is, again, as I start out, this is the most important election in 22. I guarantee you.
Yeah. All right, listen, God bless you. Thank you very much. And again, let me know if you have anything else you want to talk about, discuss. You're more than welcome to come on here. And if I get down to Texas, I'll be sure and hit you guys up, and would love to come and talk at some of your events that you have. I'd love to listen, these voters have to get up. They have to get out. They have to start knocking doors and spreading the word that this is a crisis situation.
They really do. And we're gonna have some great rallies down here. I've got great national politicians that are going to be endorsing the campaign. You'll know quite a few of them when I roll that out. This is really just we got a ton of momentum, and this is something that's really going to happen. And appreciate all the help you can give me.
You got it. God bless you. God bless you, brother, and thank you very much.
Same. God bless you, and God bless Texas.
You got it.
Thank you.
As I continue talking to different people around the country that are running for local and state offices, on this episode, it's Don Huffines, who is running for governor in the state of Texas. One thing I'm starting to realize, well, I knew this, but I hope that you realize through this podcast, is that now in the Republican Party, you really do have two types of candidates. You have those who are running to get elected, and you have those who are trying to lead. That's the question you need to start asking yourself, and you need to get involved. Once you identify one of these leaders, you need to get behind them, because folks, here's the ultimate thing. They could be the greatest leader in the world. If they don't have people to show up, they're not leading anybody. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace. I'm out of here.